Few minutes here. What did we do? Yeah. We could give her a few minutes, but she did say she might be running late, so let me get.
And she gets here late.
That's absolutely fine. Yep. We get sped kid. That's the work session. Deal, yeah. So that's still at. We go ahead and get started. Ms. Hines may be joining us here shortly.
We'll go ahead and call to order the September 8th Rockbridge County Planning Commission meeting. Call to order. Commission member Hennis is here. Commission member Hines hopefully will be here soon, but is not here at this point. Commissioner member Lucas is not here. Commissioner member Whitmore is present, and Mr. McLaughlin is also present. Bear with me as I read these out. Please take notice that the September 8th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting will be held by electronic means pursuant of the continuity of government resolutions adopted by the Board of Supervisors April 5th, 2021 due to the threats posed by COVID-19 pandemic to the health, safety, and welfare of the public. While some commission members may participate remotely, staff will be presenting as normal in the Board of Supervisors meeting room at 150 South Main Street, Lexington 24450. In addition to the citizens attending the meeting in person, citizens have several options to view or to participate. We will do our best to take citizen comments remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. One is to join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar. The link is available on the county website to copy into the address line on your browser. To join by telephone, you may dial in on one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature, and you can press the raise your hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling by telephone. This time we'll go ahead and proceed on to the meeting. Are there any citizen comments on anything not on tonight's agenda? Yes, Sam.
Just wanted to say that representing the Dunlaps and the neighbors to Modine expansion on Kyerstown Road. We just really appreciate Modine working with us. We know they aren't required to do a landscape buffer, but they've been really nice working with us as neighbors and done a really nice job with the landscape buffer to the rear of their new facility in the back. We just really appreciate that. We're also really excited just to see Modine utilize the facility up there and the growth that they're showing in the community. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krickenberg. Is there anyone else with any citizen comments? Do we have anybody, any written comments or anybody?
We do not have any written comments. We do not have any open questions. And we do not have any hands raised. With that, I will turn it back over to the chair.
Okay. Next on the agenda is approval of the August 11th, 2021 minutes. Corrections?
Didn't see anything.
Either.
There's one question mark that should have been a period, but other than that, it was good. So I make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Board of Supervisors report.
Yes, sir. At the August 23rd, 2021 meeting, the Board of Supervisors approved the dam and campground off Plank Road, Rocking Star Lane, with the recommended conditions that y'all had recommended to the board.
Okay, moving on next to the Modine Manufacturing Company commercial site plan review.
Yes, bear with me here. I'm going to share my screen before I turn it over to Mr. Russ Orson. Super short and sweet PowerPoint on my end. This is a commercial site plan review for the proposed freestanding building located at Modine. You may, just a sidetrack for my presentation, usually we do commercial site plans after all the public hearings, but with the number of public hearings we've had here recently, we decided to start doing site plans prior to the public hearings. They usually, generally speaking, they take less time and motions, that type of thing. The item we're talking about is Modine commercial site plan review. The total parcel associated with Modine manufacturing is 19.233 acres, zoned in the general industrial zoning district. Address for the property is 360 Collierstown Road, Lexington, Virginia. Tax map associated with the 19.233 acres is tax map 74-18-A. And again, it's owned by Modine Manufacturing Company. Modine has submitted a site plan for the review of a 10,563 square foot building on the property. This is a freestanding building to be located on the northeast side of the property in the rear of the existing facility. The building will be utilized for research and development for Modine products. A landscaping plan has also been submitted that includes a buffer of plantings between the addition and neighboring dwelling, neighboring dwelling type. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Russ Orson to review the details of the project. I do have the plan digitally. Yes. It's easy. Yeah, absolutely.
Or they all have.
They do have reduced size, but let me go here while you're chatting. I can pull it up.
Yeah, so thank you for seeing me first. It is a freestanding building. It's going to be for research and development, but mostly for testing of their units. It's going to be have a lot of. We can get it very hot in there. We can get it very cold in there to test their units in different conditions. Is the need for this building? It's by right site plan in the industrial zone. The landscape plan shows a buffer that we worked out with the adjoining owners that I think will do a good job once it gets a little maturity to it. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
And so for just discussion purposes, what we've pulled up is page 10 of 12, which shows the freestanding building and then the reference landscaping plan.
front of the building's out here, 251, is directly behind the building. There's existing concrete is here and the ramp is here. And we go here, here's our property line here and the land.
What's the distance? What's the distance to the
Neighbor.
neighbor? Yes.
Yikes, I don't know, the scale is 30 scale, 4 inches, 120 feet from the building.
From the building to the.
Yeah.
property. Okay. Now, obviously, the neighbors have been informed since they're here.
They are. And Sam was kind enough to come by the office and work out a landscape plan.
Yep, very straightforward. So Chris, do we need to make a motion on this?
It does require a motion to approve the site plan as submitted. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the site plan as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on now to the Hidden Valley Farm rezoning from I-1 to A2. At
Bear
this
with me.
time- Okay, so you're going to review the project before we.
Yes. Somewhat in the world we live in, it's somewhat ironic, but we've had very limited activity on Collierstown Road in last couple years there. And tonight we have 3 agenda items on Collierstown Road. It's good news. But with that being said, I would like to share my PowerPoint presentation. I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation before I turn it over to the applicant. The next agenda item is Hidden Valley Farm Incorporated rezoning, and this would be a rezoning from the property is located at 345 Spring Meadow Lane, Lexington, Virginia. It's identified as tax map number 74-A-75, owned by Hidden Valley Farm Incorporated. Tax map number 74-A-75 is a total of 90.717 acres per tax records and is currently comprised of approximately 80.97 acres in the A2 zoning district, agricultural general zoning district. And under discussion tonight is the additional 9.75 acres of the industrial zone, general industrial I1 zone. The 9.75 acres of the I1 zone is located on the north and southeast portion of the property and is adjacent to the Modine property. Zooming in, of course, Hidden Valley has applied for a rezoning, a downzoning, a rezoning of the 9.75 acres from I1 to the A2 zoning district. This is the current map of the area showing the industrial zoning district in gray and then the agricultural and general use district in white there. And so the original rezoning was in May of 1974 for the Kennametal facility. And part of that original rezoning was approximately a 200-foot buffer. Not only it included the Kennametal, which is now owned by Modine Manufacturing Company, but it also included approximately a 200-foot buffer. And if you can follow my cursor here, the 200-foot buffer starts on Collierstown Road here, travels north, and then due south or due west, if you will. So the area that's under consideration is then 9.75 acres included in this area. What is not under consideration is there is some property to the north and then the west that is not owned by Hidden Valley Farms Incorporated. So therefore, it's not part of this application. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Krickenberger and if needed, Mr. Dunlap. Absolutely.
Nice to see you all. Sam Krickenberger. I'm representing Mac and Dolores Dunlap, Hidden Valley Farm. The farm is for sale, and one of the things that we've looked at is the industrial zone around it. It's an area that's not really an attribute to the farm itself, and it's also an area in the county that even though there's sewer that serves Modine, we're not allowed to do connections to it, so there's really not a lot of opportunity for industrial development around the perimeter of Modine, besides the fact that it's an oddly configured strip. Mr. Baer thought at the time when the county approached him that it might be a good idea to have a little extra industrial zone around the farm. They've been farming it ever since. It just doesn't lend itself to the farming operation. So the Dunlaps got in touch with me a while back and asked if I could help them with this a little bit. And so what we're asking tonight is just downzone this area. We think it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and the development around the surrounding area other than Modine itself, which was an oddly zoned area back in the 70s. And are requesting to downzone the 9.75 acres from industrial back to agricultural like all the surrounding land. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any. Mr. Dunlap is here also.
And the property's for sale.
It is for sale.
Is there development?
It's for sale for 90 acres plus a 35-acre parcel. The one thing we would like to do, and one of the reasons, and we met with Modine, we walked the property, we asked if there was any advantage to them and quickly realized that, and I'll just show you on this. The access to the farm right now is Spring Meadow Lane, which is just a farm and odd access to the farm. We'd like to put our own driveway in to better serve the farm itself. Approved entrance permit is 60. So, we would not be able to do our own entrance if somebody of this community. We have plenty of opportunity. As you see tonight, this lower corner of the property is very swampy. The only entrance permit is that one area along the front.
That would permit another entrance.
That would allow them to have their own entrance to serve the farm and not have to drive through the street.
The Spring Meadow Lane gets real narrow, I think.
It is. It's a very awkward access. So we think by doing that, that would just help to be an advantage for, a sale of the property. The Dunlaps do not have family members that are interested in taking over the farm. The daughter lives near Chesterfield, and they're more interested in moving towards their daughter, like so many families seem to do.
There any deed restrictions on this, or, I mean, you could sell it and put however many 40 houses in there?
No deed restrictions that I'm aware of, other than by access. We're not interested in building a state road, and there's no, there is public water along Collierstown, but there are no connections allowed to that existing sewer line that was put in place back in the 70s.
So everyone would have to have its own well and septic if you put a
If
subdivision in
somebody
there?
bought it and wanted to do a development, they would have to go through that whole process, right?
Okay.
Would make sense to have that entrance.
And we could do the entrance regardless of zoning, but we just think the industrial zones are an impediment really to the property and no advantage to the farm itself.
So is the little sliver right there, the one that is not owned, it's kind of like that long to the left? Is
Jake
that-
Wilson, the local fence builder, actually owns that property and runs his business out of that. So he lives in the home in the back and has that industrial property towards the front where he keeps all his equipment.
So it's just gonna be a little sliver left in there.
Well, other than the industrial
Modine.
zone of Modine itself, right?
Any other questions?
Piggyback off on that discussion, there's two plats of the property in your package. One was the original rezoning map, if I recall correctly, it was identified as parcel A, B, and C. And then the second plat in your package is the boundary line adjustment plat that identifies what has been previously sold off. That's not under consideration. Obviously, the 9.75 acres is only on the Hidden Valley Farm Incorporated parcel.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now go ahead and open the public hearing. If there's anyone physically present who would like to speak, please come forward, state your name, magisterial district, and please try to limit your comments to around 3 minutes if you would, please. Is there anyone?
There is no one signed up to speak, but if anyone would like to speak, that opportunity.
Okay,
Not,
we'll
let me check the computer
go
here.
ahead and look at the
We
computers, see
have
if there's-
no questions and answers, and we have no hands raised. With that, I will turn it back over to the chair.
Okay, since there is no one here, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the planning commission.
Straightforward.
Pretty
I was
straightforward.
gonna say,
Makes-
Down zoning is pretty easy.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Motion
Okay,
will alternate since. I make a motion that the planning commission recommend to the board of supervisors that the rezoning of approximately 9.75 acres around the northerly and easterly boundaries of the Modine manufacturing property, being a portion of the real estate owned by Hidden Valley Farm Incorporated, identified as tax map number 74A75 from the general industrial district I1 to the agricultural and general uses A2 district be approved.
second the motion.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving next to Joseph F. Baher.
Yes, Mr.
Exception.
Mr. Joseph Baher is in attendance this evening. With that being said, bear with me here, and I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation. Again, Mr. Baher has made an application for a special exception for a bed and breakfast homestay in the general residential zoning district. The property is located at 76 Red Hill Road, Fairfield, Virginia, and consists of 0.95 acres per tax records, again, located in the R1 zoning district. Mr. Baher has applied for a special exception to operate a bed and breakfast homestay per section 604.03-1 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations. Bed and breakfast homestays are a use by special exception. Per section 302.24 of the regulations, a bed and breakfast homestay is defined as a short-term rental where overnight accommodations plus breakfast in a private owner-occupied home that provides 1 to 3 guest rooms for occasional bed and breakfast uses. Occasional bed and breakfast guests. Primary use of the home remains as a resident, not as a lodging establishment. Signs are generally not displayed on the property, and all reservations are made in advance. Income derived from the bed and breakfast homestay activity is a source of supplemental income and does not usually represent a primary source of income. Mr. Baher plans on renting out the basement bedroom of his home for short-term rental purposes. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Baher to review the details of the project and go over anything that we may have missed.
Appreciate you having me. Just trying to capitalize on the wedding venue, which is shortly down the road. A lot of our guests getting married, people we know. So younger couples not wanting to stay in a hotel, more people that I know than people I don't know I'd like to accommodate. It's going to be 1 bedroom of a small house. It's got a private entrance off the patio at the basement door. Offers a nice deck for people to lounge on, things like that.
Will your dog be there to greet them?
Both of them,
Both
yeah, yeah. And of course, I'll be on the property the majority of the time and things like that.
How many times do you think you'll rent it out per month?
I
Do
don't
you
see
have-
it being so much. I mean, it's probably going to be hit or miss throughout each month. With COVID, we slowed down with weddings and still people are a little hesitant to book. So right now, I don't see me doing much of that, but hopefully when things pick up or business grows, it gets better, it'll be better over time.
Very good. Thank you.
I don't think that's going to increase a lot of traffic on that road.
Not for 1 bedroom. Public hearing.
All right, we need to do the public hearing. Okay, at this time, we're going to open the public hearing. If there's anyone physically present who would like to speak, please come forward. State your name, magisterial district, and try to keep your comments to around 3 minutes. Is there anybody physically here? All right, we'll go to electronic.
We do not have any question and answers posed, and we do not have any hands raised.
No chats, Zooms,
No,
nothing,
No,
no phones. Okay,
no,
right.
sir.
then we'll go ahead and with that, close the public hearing. Back to the planning commission.
you think there are any conditions that we need to consider here? I mean, like I said, it seems pretty straightforward and not like you're gonna have a ton of people with a one bedroom. If there's anything that I can think of that we need to put in there. Okay. So I'll make a motion that the planning commission recommend to the board of supervisors that the special exception permit to operate a bed and breakfast homestay in the general residential district R1 at 76 Red Hill Road, Fairfield, Virginia, in the South River Magisterial District and identified as tax map 39A164A be approved without conditions.
Second.
Here we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Behar. Moving on to Sunset Farm LLC, special exception permit for a lodge in AT District, Act Transitional District,
Yes, bear with me here.
right there on Thornhill Road.
I have a short presentation before I turn it over to the owners of the property. All right, Sunset Farms LLC has applied for a special exception permit to operate a lodge in the agricultural transitional zone. That would be the A2 zone. The property is identified as 1475 Thornhill Road, Lexington, Virginia. Again, zoned agricultural transitional with both A2 and R1, A2 being the general agricultural zone and R1 being the general residential zone nearby. So on the map, outlined in orange is the Sunset Farm LLC property. The surrounding area on that side of the road is the AT zone. Moving across the road at Spring Meadow Lane and surrounding property is the A2 zoning district, and traveling back towards town, you get into Tulipwood Lane and Woods Edge Drive, which is located in the residential zoning district, the R1 zoning district. Tax map identified for the parcel is 74-6-1B. It occupies 2.26 acres per tax records, again, owned by Sunset Farm LLC. Once was what's called the Turpin's Feed Store and currently has 4 buildings on the site. Kelly Mangione in attendance tonight, along with co-owner Win Locker of Sunset Farm, has made an application for a lodge for a special exception permit in the agricultural zoning, creating 3 rental units total. First floor of the feed store and second floor of the feed store will be utilized as a 3-bedroom, 1-bath unit, and then the other floor will be a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit. And then also you can see on this proposal, the loft barn, 1 barn is to be removed, 1 shed, if you will, is going to be removed for expanded parking area. And then the loft barn is planned to be converted into a single family dwelling for short-term rentals. Excuse me, really a lodge for short-term rentals. Rental units will be used for short-term rentals less than 30 consecutive days. Plan is 6 total parking spaces in between the feed store and the loft barn. It has room for approximately 6 or 7 parking spaces, with other parking spaces available where you see what I think is a camper located here. Per section 603B.03-7 of the county land development regulations, it's actually lodges/resorts or lodge or resorts are used by special exception. Possible conditions for discussion purposes. Staff has drafted the following conditions. Number 1 would be substantial development with the plan titled parking area designation for Sunset Farm dated August 25th, 2021. That's the plan that was shown previously, and that's the plan included in your package. Vehicle parking is not allowed within the VDOT right-of-way along the side of Thornhill Road, Route 251. I do know Ms. Mangione has met with VDOT, and that was one of they are requiring a uniformed entrance to the location as shown on the plan, and they will prohibit any nose-in parking associated with the store. So I thought it'd be beneficial to add that as condition number 2. Condition number 3, rental units shall be used for short-term rental only. And number 4, approval is contingent on county building department, erosion and sediment control, stormwater management, Virginia Department of Transportation, and Public Service Authority and Health Department approvals. A little bit unusual. We usually don't have both the PSA and Health Department in the same motion. But in this particular case, it's my understanding that the building can be served by public water, but it cannot be served by public sewer. Therefore, they proposed a drain field on site. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Locker, I believe. And I'm going to pull up he has a PowerPoint presentation as well. All right, you ready to go just up and down for your chair?
Appreciate everyone's time tonight. I'm going to skip a little bit ahead in our presentation because Chris covered a lot of what I had in mind as well. If any of you guys haven't been out to 51 recently, this is the feed store. It is in fairly good repair and recently had a new roof put on it, so it would stay in as good a shape as it is. Most of the inside will need to be torn out during our project, but we're going to maintain the shape and character of the building and the building behind it as well. The developers, Kelly and myself, Kelly's husband, Scott, and Kelly's sister and her husband as well. The 5 of us are developing this property together. And we formed a partnership LLC to bring this project to fruition. And we expect it to take about 6 months from board approval. Our vision is to transform the property so that it can be used, bring it back up to current codes and building standards, but also maintain the charm of the building and of the area, our little piece of Virginia. As Chris pointed out, it is a 2.26 acre property located in the Ag Trans District. The buildings here, I'm actually going to show you on this picture that Chris had as well. So this is the VDOT right away. The feed store is actually going to be a 3-bed, 2-bath on the first floor and a 2-bed, 1-bath on the second floor. The loft barn will be a 1-bedroom and 1-bath short-term rental. This building here is a 2-bath of repair to be retained and will be raised. And the parking area, based on the county standards, could serve up to 8 oversized parking places. It still allows space on this side and this side for sidewalk. And we're going to maintain this area in the back for recreation, fire pits, grilling, that sort of thing for our guests. We're going to install a fence along the back of the property and along the side of the property. This is an easement to the property that adjoins in the rear. And we're not sure what the plan will be with the barn, but we want to keep our guests from accessing the barn. And as Chris pointed out, we won't allow any parking in the front. We've discussed most of this. So some of the development, we've already started with parts of it. We've started taking down some of the trees. Some vegetation is going to have to come out. We've been in discussions with a septic engineer to develop a 6-bedroom engineered system. One more time. The septic system will be as designed, will be placed on this field. There are easements in place, a viewshed easement from this property that will not allow anything to be built on this hill, but within that easement, there is allowed for a septic field to be placed within that field.
They're also happy and excited for us for the project. We're good friends with them and we talked a lot about them and they're excited and want to see the property fixed up and cleaned up. Like everybody else.
And we're going to discuss most of these things. We're going to create the parking area and a recreation area as well. We are requesting a special exception within the Ag Trans District so that we can have a lodge on this property to allow for 3 short-term rentals, one of them being a duplex. We understand that it could not be transitioned back to a long-term rental because a duplex is an allowable exception within the Agricultural Transitional District. And Chris was correct that we are serviced by municipal water. We cannot, however, connect to the municipal sewer because of the county moratorium or the city's moratorium.
Yeah.
Hence the septic system. Benefits to the area, a themed destination. So an old feed store would draw a lot of people. People on and the Airbnb and VRBO community like to see things that are different. They don't want to stay in a regular old 3-bedroom house. So that's going to bring tourists, visitors to the area. All 3 jurisdictions will benefit by tourism dollars, increased lodging taxes, increased restaurant taxes, and just bringing people and exposing them to our area so they'll come back and see us again. Also, improving the property in general will improve its property value. So it's going to be increased revenue to the county in that regard. And the lodging tax, we estimate with 15 to 20 nights booked at each of the properties over the course of a month. In aggregate, we're estimating the price of $600 if all three properties are rented. And that would bring approximately $1,200 to $1,600 of monthly revenue to the county through lodging tax, which is $14,400 to $19,200 a year. They're also going to be visiting restaurants and other businesses. So this is the property from the street view. The building here in the middle, this is the one to be raised, and there'll be a fence blocking off the barn. And that is the end of our presentation, and we're happy to take any questions.
I just want to say one other thing. I'm just really excited to see this property hopefully finally get restored. My husband and I live right next door. So obviously I know a lot of people have issues with short-term rentals, but we'll be right there and, to make sure that everything's going smoothly and to oversee everything so that there's not any issues. We realize that the speed limit on that road is, 55 miles an hour. People do go fast. So we're definitely going to encourage people, to pull into the driveway and go right to the parking area, which the neighbors are excited about not having, not using that other driveway, that they'll be coming right into our property. So just something else to mention, but thank you so much for your
And the
consideration.
Moose Lodge is okay with this extra, all this
I mean,
extra noise? that's gonna be
I was gonna say, if they're not, we sit outside and listen to their music all the time, so I don't see them having an issue with the noise.
I find this very exciting. The old Turpin store goes way back. I'm excited
So
to see
you
it.
mentioned
Got some
6
new lights.
months. You think you can get it done in 6 months?
So my brother-in-law is a builder, and he has an amazing construction company up in Northern Virginia, and he's actually going to contract his men to come down and do a lot of the work for us. So that's exciting. We're going to use some of the subs and stuff in the area, of course, for the electrical and stuff like that. But that'll, I think, help us to move it along for sure.
All right.
We'll pause for just a moment and let the record show that Ms. Hines is here.
Kids come first. Here's a meeting for the school. Sorry.
Okay, do you all have any more questions? Then
Short-term rental, I guess I want a clarification on that because I always get confused. The short-term rental, less than 30 days. I mean, if somebody
30
wanted to come and stay for 25 days, they could, or 29 days, they could, but.
Right.
Okay.
That is correct.
Less than 30
Per
days, yeah.
the definition of the land development regulations, less than
Remind
30
myself that
consecutive
that was,
days.
yeah. I mean, we have a lot of people that'll want to come for a period of time, if they're here and maybe they're going to be doing something in the area. We get a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of professors that can't find any place to live right now. So we're having some issues with that, but they maybe only want to come for a few months if they're doing a sabbatical or something. So just want to make sure that.
all done your homework.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and open this up to public hearing. If there's anybody physically present, come forward and speak. Please come to the podium, state your name, magisterial district, keep your comments to around 3 minutes. Is there anybody signed up?
There's no one signed up.
Hey, is there anybody on electronic means, Zoom, chat, phone?
No, sir, there does not appear, but we have received written comments prior to, and so Mr. Busso was going to read those for
Okay.
us.
This comes from a Sonia K. Clark Taylor at 750 North Lee Highway in Lexington. And she says, I'll try to attend this meeting if time allows, but let me state, we keep to ourselves at our residence. I don't have issues with trying to improve the primary building for use in that particular area that is run down, but here are some of our concerns. Putting other cottages behind this structure going to affect the property value of this area with a question mark. How are we guaranteed, or how will it be policed that if the lodging isn't profitable or works to their plan, that this will not become long-term rental? Issue with that is there is a lot of problems from a similar setup down the road from us that has constant police presence there. It may be zoned for lodging, but how do you determine or monitor that it would not be a long-term rental? that could turn into the same issues. Also, what plans are in place for the road for this facility? If it is rented to capacity, there would be a heavier traffic pattern, but I was advised no turning lane or has been addressed to update that road. Reason I ask is this road is already a hazard as is. We already have concerns as it is with people who walk this road and bike there. We also watch our rearview mirror as it is turning into our driveway and signal early. Our main concern again is affecting property values in this area by adding additional buildings to that lot instead of preserving the existing building as it is. But I do agree it needs to be cleaned up behind this building, just not sure additional structures would be suitable for our area. And then she had a reply that I will also read. It says, truth be known, we all know if it is used for rental for Washington and Lee and VMI parents / alumni, there will not be just 4 or 5 autos coming out of this location. I also wanted to add is reason for concern for traffic pattern. We have enough close calls with Moose Lodge and people trespassing on the lot at the Moose. That's all.
If possible, I can respond to some of that. I do believe we have followed up with her since the original email, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so with that being said, VDOT has, Ms. Mangione has met with Alvin Trout on site. And while there will be some requirements such as tree removal or brush removal, I'll say, I'll just state, it says VDOT has determined that site distance requirements can be obtained. We will be working with Ms. Mangione to permit this entrance with the following requirements. The hedges along 251 will be trimmed to achieve the required site distance. The entrance will need to be surface treated with asphalt to restore adequate entrance, correcting the current deterioration of the existing entrance. The asphalt shall extend back from the edge of pavement to approximately 50 feet. There will be no street parking allowed along 251, pull-in parking from Route 251. She has agreed to provide parking along the west side of the building directly behind the existing building. So I think that, that we obviously lean heavily on VDOT's entrance permit requirements for low volume, moderate volume, whatever they deemed appropriate. And so that takes care of some of the traffic concerns, potentially takes care of some of the traffic concerns, knowing that VDOT has reviewed the entrance. Of course, the parking is included in the substantial compliance in number 1, and then number 2, no vehicle parking allowed within the VDOT right of way. And then the third concern she had was how to determine that the rental units will be only used for short-term rental. And that is a monitoring situation from the Department of Planning and Zoning, Department of Community Development. With that being said, of course, number 3 attempts to cover that, or does cover that, is rental units shall be used for short-term rental only. We have discussed, we always look forward. We always try to, look forward to what happens if this does revert back. You have a duplex situation with a single family dwelling. Essentially, this is all considered a lodge resort. But if it would revert to a duplex and a single family dwelling, the only possibility the path forward for that type of use would be a rezoning to residential. There is residential as shown in the presentation. There is residential zoning district back towards town. It's approximately 170 feet away from this piece of property. And this piece of property is in the agricultural transitional zone that has some discussion in the ordinance about potential upzoning to higher and more intensive zoning categories. And the third and final point, there was some miscommunication, and they are not planning on additional buildings, but rather rehabbing the buildings that are there.
Right.
Or
To make sure.
raising one building, obviously for the parking, and then making improvements to the third middle building, if you will.
Should there be signage out front with no parking? Keep that VDOT right away open. Because I assume that's where in the feed, when it was a feed store, the people would pull in.
I believe so, yes. And so vehicle parking not allowed within the VDOT right of way along the side of Thornhill Road. And so we could certainly, I think that's a sound and reasonable condition that's of course associated with the use of the property. So that could certainly be included in
But
the
I could see,
conditions.
if there were visitors coming in to visit with folks, they would.
Basically, we just need to add to that, no parking signs will be to be installed. And that's, with that number 2 condition.
Does that work for you all?
Yes.
Absolutely. VDOT did say that they're fine if someone pulls in and just unloads like loading zone or whatever, it's
Right.
fine, like horizontal. But no one.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we can provide that information. We can provide that information to them before they check in, before they even arrive, and just let them know that that area's destination will also provide the signage and we'll make it clear.
So I've added to number two, currently states, well, if acceptable, I'll just go ahead and read the draft conditions for discussion purposes. Number one, substantial compliance with the development plan titled Parking Area Designation for Sunset Farm, dated August 25th, 2021. Number two, vehicle parking is not allowed within the VDOT right-of-way along the side of Thornhill Road, Route 251. No parking signage shall be to be installed. Number three, rental units shall be used for short-term rental only. Number four, approval is contingent on county building department, erosion sediment control / stormwater management, Virginia Department of Transportation, and Public Service Authority / Health Department approvals.
We are. I don't believe it's closed public hearing.
Okay, we'll go ahead. If there's no other comments, then we will go ahead and close the public hearing. Bring it back to the commission. Thank you.
It looks like a good project. I think it's gonna enhance the area, certainly. If anything, it's gonna enhance the property values, not detract from them, I believe. So I'm definitely in favor of the project.
I'm thrilled to see this.
You ready for me?
Yeah.
I make a motion that the planning commission recommend to the board of supervisors that the special exception permit to develop and operate a lodge in the agricultural transition AT district for LDR section 603B.03-7 at 1475 Thornhill Road, Lexington, Virginia, and identified as tax map number 7461B be approved with following conditions. One, substantial compliance with the development plan titled Parking Area Designation for Sunset Farm dated August 25th, 2021. Two, vehicle parking is not allowed within VDOT right-of-way along the side of Thornhill Road, Route 251. No parking signs to be installed. Three, rental units shall be used for short-term rental only. Four, approval is contingent on county building department, erosion and sediment control, stormwater management, Virginia Department of Transportation, and Public Service Authority / Health Department approval.
We have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all. Good luck and
Looking forward to it.
looking forward to seeing the progress. Right, this brings us now to consideration for a zoning text amendment for wood yards.
Yes, based on last month's discussion, staff has advertised for a public hearing for a zoning text amendment to allow for wood yards as a use by special exception, defining wood yards and providing wood yards as a use by special exception in the agricultural and limited use districts, A2 zoning district, and the agricultural and general use zoning district. That would be the A2 zoning districts. With that being said, if you don't mind, I'm going to have a short presentation. When I say short, it's two pages, including the title that I've already gone through. So in your package and as advertised, we have defined wood yards under the proposed definition of wood yards is section 302.229A. Wood yards is any parcel of land or portion thereof used for the commercial sorting and marketing of logs. And then in addition to defining wood yards, as directed last month, we've added wood yards by use by special exception in the A1 zoning district. Again, that's the agricultural and limited use districts under section 602.03-14 wood yard. And then we've also done the same for the agricultural and general use district. That would be the A2 zoning district. So under 603.03-25, wood yards are would be a use by special exception. Just reviewing the history, Currently, wood yards are a permitted use in the industrial zoning district. To my knowledge, we have 3 wood yards in the industrial zoning district, all in the northern part of the county, all in the existing industrial zoning district. With that, this is contingent. Obviously, we have the very next agenda item is the application for a special exception, depending on this conversation or direction of the planning commission. So with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to the chair at this time for discussion and answering questions that y'all may have.
Do we, to you, this is not,
me, yes.
this is not part of the public,
This is a public hearing for sure, but
but
this,
we haven't opened it yet.
that is correct. We have not
So
opened
this
the
is
public
just-
hearing.
just for you, Rick. Is there any consideration of size limitation on a log yard in any of these?
No, not currently. We discussed that last month's, we discussed some of that at last month's meeting, but that was not the direction we gave. But that's not the direction that the planning commission gave to staff. What we talked about last month is we could do an ordinance similar to what we're working on the solar ordinance that defines minimum parcel sizes, prohibition of floodplain, buffer requirements. The sky's the limit with the ordinance. But in this particular case here, as directed, we are only defining wood yards and providing them by special exception.
I think that makes sense. I do think we need to look at an ordinance, just so it's very clear what we're gonna, what we're looking for, just like we do for solar arrays and all those other things.
So again, based on this would be the appropriate time to do that. Not having that. What I'm hearing is we could potentially approve this and then come back with an ordinance, and that would sort of be, in my opinion, backwards of how a normal process would work. We could have gotten the direction to develop an ordinance and have
Right.
certain criteria in it, but that's not the burden at hand.
So we can't come back. Basically it makes sense that we want to do it by a special exception and we want to add a definition. I think everybody agrees that we need to do that. But to me, it seems like, just like with solar arrays, they're part of it. They get a special exception, but then we're coming back after the fact to do an ordinance to say, okay, we've agreed that they're allowed here. Now we need to come up with, what are we looking for when you bring us a project, So I guess I don't see it as being backwards. I see this as being broad and then narrowing the focus when you come up with an ordinance with other, not for this project that we're going to talk about tonight, the Crown, but for future,
I
just
don't
like
think
we've
it-
done with the others.
I don't think every use by special exception has a, explicitly written out. The special exception process takes care of it individually. My understanding, if you look at these, what's allowed by special exception, it doesn't have a complete ordinance written with it.
Some of them do,
Some
most of them
reasons,
do
yeah.
not. And so that, if that is the will of the planning commission to do that, this would be the appropriate time to do so. Depending on if you have any concerns on, again, the bird in hand, the application on the very next, depending on this conversation
Right.
with the minimum lot size, as you talked about.
Right.
floodplain
That
issues.
was, the floodplain thing was a big issue for me. It's something I've talked with people about, and they're like, yeah, but some floodplains, it's a little bit of water, and some it's, huge, 100-year versus a 500-year floodplain, those are different. So they said, we're looking at as a special exception every time anyway. We're looking at, where is it located? What's it nearby? What's it going to affect if it does flood? That's kind of what I'm hearing there. And as far as a determination, or to say it has to be on 10 acres or whatever, I don't know if that's an arbitrary number. I don't know if I know enough about the business model to understand it, if that makes a difference or not.
And with special exception, if we feel like it's too large, so we can say, obviously, a latitude in each project will have its own parameters.
It sounds like you guys are not interested in drilling down on a specific ordinance. You just want to look at them each individually like we do on any of these other.
So why do we do a special ordinance permit then for looking into it for solar? We did that for a reason. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's giving, it's sort of touch base, it's giving the applicant direction up front, the potential applicant
So
direction up front.
wouldn't we want to have the same thing for the log yards that are gonna come in, just here's a checklist, make sure you meet these criteria before you
Bring it to
bring
us.
it to us.
That would be, I mean, that
And
that
that's
is
what you're
certainly,
asking, is what we need to do that now? Because that we didn't get to do that direction last month. is what you're
we
saying?
talked about last month,
Right.
absolutely. But it was,
I think upon further reflection, I mean, I know for me, I've really, kind of dug into some things and really looked at some things and thought, oh, maybe we need to have, more direction for people. I think we as a, and I don't know how you guys feel, but do we want to basically give some parameters that we don't want, for example, and this is just totally, no, you can't have it in a flood zone, or 500 year or 100, whatever it is. Do we want that? Or do you think we address that in each individual
I
exception?
think it would be something that, for me personally, I think it'd be okay to have in a flood zone, because like you said, you've talked to different people, there's things there, but have them on a checklist, be able to say, here's our engineer study that says we talked with these people, or, here's
Army
how
Corps of
water
Engineer or
coordinator
whatever.
someone, that would be something you'd want to have them, just even if it was just a professional engineer, discuss, okay, here's the water, and this is their concern of being in the flood zone, what do you suggest we do? It could be Army Corps, it could be a professional engineer, it could be just somebody they've discussed it with, to say, we've looked at this and this is what's happened over the last 20 years, or, we've had somebody look at it a little bit more intensive. That's what my personal opinion. I feel like floodplains would be okay. It's just they need to do a little bit more due diligence before bringing it to us.
It seemed more the norm of surrounding localities to expand upon storage yards, wood yards, sawmills, that sort of thing,
I'm
in
okay
an
with it.
ordinance and
Yeah,
flesh
I'm
it out
okay with
instead of
them.
just.
Just the point of, like, if it is tendency to flood, and I think someone spoke last month that it's not so much the river that floods, it's the water coming from a different direction. Well, if that's the case, then perhaps a PE could study it, or Army Corps could study it to say, okay, well, if you do want to do this, then we suggest you do this to divert that water toward the river, because it's all flowing downhill. I'm just speaking about this property just because I know the lay of the land, but it could be, and that's just because I know the lay of the land, but it could be another wood yard that comes to it, and PE would look at it and say, Russian engineer would look at it and say, yeah.
We don't know. And
Right,
that's not our
exactly.
wheelhouse. We need somebody to come and tell us and make a recommendation to us. And,
Well,
so
can
for
you
me,
make that part of the special, just without it having in writing? Can you just make that part of the special, have you check with the Army Corps of Engineers? Have you for-
But that's what we're saying with this packet, like the zoning ordinance, they would have that.
they would know
that would be a
upfront what we're
checkup.
going
That
to be
would be a-
looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the reason we did
You look
this
at-
with the
look at
solar. It's-
Sawmills, and we look at what we've done in the past, and those are things, the sawmills is. We don't have special. Rights for sawmills, do we?
no, sir.
No, but they're all the ones that we have are grandfathered in, correct?
No, two of them are operate. We have a handful of sawmills in the area, obviously.
WR and North Fork and Augusta Lumber, of course, they burn.
So the two that we have under special exception currently are the Deacons, Deacon Sawmill, and then the Shoemates, Augusta, that, of course, unfortunately. recently
North Fork
had a
falls in industrial.
What I'm saying
fire. The
is,
rest of the sawmills fall in industrial zone, yes.
but we have the conditions like we did with the Augusta Hardwoods sawmill.
Yes,
Put those in, that was part of the plan commission, that's not part of an ordinance.
that's exactly correct. Yes, sir.
I think we have that leeway to go ahead and make certain. These are guidelines that we did for.
But if we had an ordinance in place, it wouldn't require all those every single time that we have one. We wouldn't have to have 5 or 10 draft conditions, right?
And it seems like,
Ordinance.
correct me if I'm wrong, Chris or Vicky, it seems like the newer things, the newer zoning text amendment, anything that's added kind of currently in the current day, people tend to expand on them and add ordinance and add regulations on them. Because you got to
They know
think,
coming in, because they're going to come to us and then we're going to say, well, we want to see this, 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 and they're going to have to come back with that. Whereas they could, if they knew up front, we're looking for these things. Of course, I guess, Chris, you can tell them when they come in and say, hey, we're looking at doing this project. You can say, well, these are the things they're going to ask for historically.
Well,
Is
that's-
that what we're saying? I mean,
that's the other thing you got to think of. Chris Slayden, as amazing as he is, it's not always going to be here. You guys aren't always going to be sitting where you are. So you really have to plan. And this is going to sit in here for perpetuity in essence. So you got to think of of the future, 30 years down the line or whatever, what are you still gonna want wood yards to have going into?
And that's what the ordinance would say.
And that's what the ordinance. would
Whether it
be.
be in a flood zone or not flood zone, it would just be a list of, years.
Right.
what-
It kind of
yards.
safeguards you from future, not planning discrepancies, but planning decisions. It kind of prepares you. for
Right,
the
somebody
future.
might not think of something that was 20 years ago that we, passed and said, oh, we want to see.
Addressing wood yards now, so.
Right.
So it's very similar to the discussion we had with in my opinion, it's very similar to the discussion we had, the work session we had last month with the solar ordinance. As far as setbacks away from property lines, required buffers, being in the floodplain or not being in the floodplain, all of those would be addressed in an ordinance. And I agree with Chris, other localities we have seen, it's not as common just to straight define it and then provide for it. It's not uncommon, based on the research that Chris has done. He gave you examples from Augusta County, Bedford, Rockingham, Bath, Albemarle, and Nelson, Shenandoah, and Amherst, as far as, what they require. And it's not uncommon to prohibit them in the floodplain. With that being said, that it's certainly not it depends on the unique locality that they're dealing with. As far as the 100-year floodplain versus 500-year floodplain, there's no building restrictions nor zoning restrictions in the 500-year floodplain. There's no elevation requirements. There's no building restrictions, period. And zoning requirements would only pertain to the 100-year floodplain, not the 500-year.
Well, how would these text amendments be different if we decide that we want to have an ordinance?
You would direct staff to develop a ordinance essentially, and we would have a very similar discussion as we had last month with the solar discussion. What's the appropriate setback? What's the appropriate buffer? Again, floodplain
I'm trying to
issues.
figure out why adding a definition of what a wood yard is and adding it to meeting a special exception in an ag area. I just don't understand why that's a problem to go ahead and say, yes, this is what a wood yard is, and yes, this is where you have to have a special
I
exception.
agree. It could
And we're
not.
gonna work down the road to come up with an ordinance.
What you got, Vicky?
I was gonna say, I could tell you go say
You're
something.
gonna already say something. And you're like,
Well, what we discussed last month was that commission wishes to handle log yards as a special exception and deal with any issues such as floodplains on a case-by-case basis.
That's exactly correct.
That's-
Yes.
That's what we said.
Then we started talking about that there are a lot of things that we feel like are gonna be common to all wood yards. And so maybe it would make sense to have an ordinance like we do for solar so that we don't every single time have to rewrite the book.
well, I was thinking more of not having it where the applicant comes once, makes a presentation, has his ducks in a row, has everything he needs, and then when he walks out of here, he has his application. So that's what I like
Right,
to see
I agree.
for Crownwood or
Clarity.
anybody else that's going to come, Crown Hardwood coming here or anyone else. Is just have have a good presentation and be able to walk away with it. We're going, well, we really want to see this, and I hate that. I hate as a commission that we keep
Sending
pushing
people
out,
back, bring us
push
more,
out.
bring us more, right? Vicki, did you have something to say about my question about this text versus, is there a reason why we can't go ahead and do the text amendment and vote on that and then direct staff to come up with an ordinance?
There is not. I mean, it's all an ordinance, just so you understand that.
Mhm.
What we do with these text amendments you're looking at right now is adopt them through an ordinance.
Mhm.
So what you're talking about is including a change to, say, the wood yard definition that incorporates the requirements in section whatever of the LDRs. And then you have that section similar to what you have for signs or livestock confinement systems. And it sets out what you expect to see related over and above the norm related to wood yards. Now, if you approve what you have now, you can still evaluate a project case by case. But there's no guarantee that the future changes you're contemplating will be approved. no guarantee anything will be approved. You understand, you're making recommendations.
Mhm.
But sometimes I think the chances of, maybe it's a little more understandable if it all goes at one time rather than piece. Is that helping?
So instead of approving these, we would wait until we had the rest of the ordinance, so we could just approve all that one ordinance all at one time. The name of
That's
the
right.
wood yard and what's required would be under that.
That's right. But that would delay the project that is currently pending,
Okay. Okay.
which you may not wish to do. I don't.
Like wood yards are certainly part of our agricultural.
Mhm. I agree. Yeah, I agree. Commercial, but it's, all farming is commercial if it's done.
I don't know. I'm comfortable with evaluating them on a case by case basis. I don't know how we could put a arbitrary limit on the size of a lot. I mean, if someone wanted to come in and buy a 50-acre farm and say, I want to put a wood lot in, we wouldn't say, well, you can only use 3 acres of it.
What if somebody comes with 3 acres?
It
and
would be a
wants to put
minimum
wood yard?
lot size. I mean, very similar to livestock confinements. It would not be a maximum. It would be a minimum requirement
Right.
of X number of acres.
I mean, I can foresee something about maybe maximum height of stacking of logs. I mean, that's going to kind of, correct itself. But if you go out in Goshen, the creosote mill, they stack those tie
That's
logs really high.
That's
So,
an industrial zone, right?
but it's an industrial zone.
That would be an industrial zone, yes. Stella Jones is an industrial zone, yes.
I think I'm in.
So this is a public hearing, so I will step aside.
Go ahead and open up the public hearing right now. Is there anybody present who would like to speak? If so, come forward, state your name, magisterial district, and try to keep the comments to within 3 minutes, please. So, come forward, sir.
I understand, in Collins Creek, there's a proposed log yard. And most everybody around it is against it because it's in the floodplain. It's right next to the creek. And the traffic is pretty bad there. It's around a turn, and with big trucks and everything like that, it's gonna be a hazard. So and if they stack logs too high and everything, when the flood comes, because there's been a flood there 2 times since I've been there, it'll knock down a couple buildings. There's a woman that lives not the east of it, and the logs, if they flood, they would probably knock down fences and her barn. So I'm against that log yard.
And your name, sir, is?
Ludwig Stang.
I think your comments are probably more pertinent to the specific proposal in the next agenda item versus generally what we're talking about now.
Yes, I understand. That's why I was listening and listening and listening. But that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else present?
We do have a raised hand. With that being said, bear with me here. It's Lisa Dunlap. You are muted, and so I've asked you to unmute if you can hear us.
Okay, hi. Thank you for taking my comments. And I may be out of line and needing to comment on the next issue at hand, but like Mr. Stang, I have some questions and concerns. My concern is about the size of the definition of the wood yard, and can that increase over time, being redefined at a different point in time. But I think most of my concerns may need to be addressed at the next issue, or at your next point.
Next public hearing, yes.
Can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So
So I have issues about traffic. I have issues about floodplain. I have issue about, lights. I have issues about hours and days. So should I bring those up after you've decided on whether you are gonna amend the text definition?
Yes. I would think so.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, that as far as it does relate to the conversation we're having as far as the parameters that we're discussing on the ordinance. But with that being said, Ms. Dunlap, if you do have concerns with the proposal in the Cards Creek area, they would be better suited for the potentially the next public hearing.
Yes.
Right
Okay.
after this, I should say.
Thank you.
Let me see here. Bear with me here. We do not have any additional open questions, and we do not have any other hands raised. With that, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Okay, bring it back to the planning commission. So I'm hearing kind of two things right now from us. One is to not adopt this right now and to put in some specific language pertinent to log yards as part of the ordinance, versus what we had said essentially last week or last month, is to take it on a case by case basis. That's the issue.
Are you okay with, I mean, I guess at this point, like I said, I mean, I feel like we could do like we did with solar or anything else. We can go ahead and move forward. And then I guess between us decide if we feel like we need to do an ordinance, then maybe that's down the road after we have some time to do some study and like we did with solar, basically. Is that, I mean, it sounds like that's what you guys are in favor of there.
I think there needs to be, just some guide, if it's an ordinance that allows them to have guidelines bringing it to it. And I feel like the biggest concern is going to be if there's something, if it's going to be near homes and in a flood zone, that would be something we want to provide the, proprietor of coming to us to say, okay, here, look, I've already looked at this, I've talked to these people, and and they have an idea of what we're going to request. I like not pulled up, business or something like that if they already know what they need to provide. If that is required through an ordinance, I don't see it not happening in the flood zone. I just rather than be able to say, okay, we talked to a professional engineer, or we're going to put this 10-acre or 20-acre log yard here on either side of some homes, and we've got a plan to make sure we don't disturb, just things like that we're gonna.
I agree with all of that. I think the issue is that if we don't adopt this thing, then we're kind of pushing Crown Hardwoods out anyway.
I think there needs to be, we can, I would feel like we can adopt this.
That's what
But
I
then
was
think
saying.
in the future, we need to have it,
We need to have a work study, or a work session where we can pull up, different, just kind of exactly like we did with solar and come up with some, I just don't think we ought to rush into it, to coming up with the ordinance until we have a chance to sit down and really study like we did. I mean, we haven't rushed with the solar thing. We've still continued with projects and made lists of 8 or 10 conditions with every single one that we've approved. So I think we still have that same opportunity here.
If Commissioner managers maybe just move their mics down. I think they're having trouble.
Oh.
Yeah.
I get 2.
Thank you very much.
Oh, she's doubling. I got 2.
Is that,
All right.
I hope that's better.
Okay.
All right.
Do we need to repeat anything that we
I
said?
think we just need to
And we do need to close.
close
Okay,
this.
all right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time, and thought I'd already done that, but guess I didn't officially do that.
The verbiage wasn't there.
Okay, we have closed the public hearing. I guess the question is, do we continue as the definitions that we have come up with?
That's it. So I'll make a motion. I make a motion that the planning commission recommend to the board of supervisors that the proposed text amendments to LDR section 302.00 to add a definition for wood yards, to add section 602.03-14 to allow a wood yard as a use by special exception in the agricultural and limited uses A1 district, and to add section 603.03-25 to allow a wood yard as a use by special exception in the agricultural and general uses district A2 be approved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. So now we move. Now, as Chris, as we make that, that's a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Is that correct?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yes.
so says we go to Crown Hardwood, I guess it would have to be contingent upon what the Board of Supervisors says.
With this proposed zoning text amendment, absolutely, yes.
All right. So just make sure that Crown Hardwood understands that as well. Okay, so we'll go ahead and staff with the Crown Hardwood special exception permit for the wood yard.
All right, bear with me here. I'm going to have a brief PowerPoint presentation. Excuse me, let me share my screen. Let me stop sharing my screen. All right. Obviously, based on that last discussion, we now have a special exception application for wood yard, for a wood yard in the agricultural and general use districts. That's the A2 zoning district. The property in question this evening, or the subject property, I should say, is located at 3505 West Midland Trail, Lexington, Virginia. The property is located in the general uses and agricultural and general use districts, A2 zoning district, excuse me. Occupying 5.14 acres per current tax records. I will note that there is what I believe is an unrecorded plat. I was unable to find it in the records. So I believe it's an unrecorded plat that was provided to y'all in your package, showing the property under a different configuration as shown on the tax map tax maps, and increasing the property from 5.14 acres to what's shown on your parcel, on your plat. I believe it was a trout survey that increases it to 6.136 acres. I will note, if I can, this is the current configuration. I had the GIS department insert based on the plat that we got, insert the plat into the records. And I would like to just, I can't. I was going to show you the old layout versus the revised layout. Essentially, I can explain it. What the old tax records show is that the BB Ayers and Sons Incorporated parcel goes to the center line of Carrs Creek. Based on the new parcel, that is not correct. It actually goes. It does not adjoin the creek in this area, except for one. And if I recall correctly, it was about a 39-foot, 40-foot, let's say 40-foot round up to 40-foot sliver of land that provides access to Carrs Creek at this location. That would be, of course, the western side of the property. Currently owned by BB Ayers and Sons and was previously utilized for an excavation company. Crown Hardwood is the contract purchaser of the property. The majority of the floodplain, the majority of the site is in the 100-year floodplain. And so this map shows the extent of the mapped 100-year floodplain. Again, the majority, I say the majority, but with the revised mapping, it looks like, close to 100% of the site is in the 100-year floodplain as determined by FEMA and shown on firm panel number 51163-0250 with an effective date of April 6, 2000. Per section, section 608.13 1 through 12 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, reviews the additional factors that would be satisfied, that have to be satisfied with development within the 100-year floodplain. That language was included in an email to y'all. Of course, you have the land development regulations. It was mentioned in the agenda item, but I did take the opportunity to send that information to y'all this afternoon, as well as the applicant. The special exception is for Crown Hardwood Company has applied to operate a wood yard in the A2 zoning district. Will use the site to store and grade logs before shipping them elsewhere. Current operation is located in Fairfield with plans to move to this location. Current plans include the addition of gravel to the site, as well as large boulders on the east side of the property to attempt to keep the logs on site. Additionally, the current plans includes the addition of a landscape buffer along West Midland Trail. What we did as far as the possible conditions, these are possible conditions that staff has developed, and how we develop these. We previously, in the previous discussion, we talked about the two sawmills that are operating us under a special exception, and these are modified conditions based on those two sawmills. They are different. They're the Augusta Lumber American Hardwoods has more conditions associated with their approval than the first one that was approved as Deacon Sawmill. But with that being said, these are only possible the conditions. I did think it was beneficial to share with y'all, and I shared that same email with the applicants to show you the exact ordinance that we're working with the ordinance for the Deacon Sawmill and the ordinance for the former Shoemate Sawmill. I did find it unique that a lot of those conditions were pertaining to the log yard itself. So again, these are only for possible conditions, possible discussion purposes. Number one, substantial with the development plan prepared by Crown Hardwood Incorporated, dated blank. I do have to get a date on that plan. That would be the plan that was included in the package and in your planning commission package. Number two, the log yard is to be watered down as needed to control dust. Number three, operation of the log yard will be from 5 a.m. till 10:30 p.m., including all cleanup activities. Number four, log trucks can be loaded and unloaded 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. Number five, Sunday operations shall not be allowed and no equipment shall be used on Sundays except for as needed for the following permitted activities. Subsection 1, property maintenance and repairs. Subsection number 2, equipment repairs, maintenance, installation, and improvements. Number 3, log grading and scaling, not to include sorting. Number 4, exterior subsection number 3, paragraph sentence number 2, exterior activities that produce noise shall be limited to hours between 12 noon and 4 p.m. That would be on Sunday. Number 6, maintain the landscaping in healthy condition. And number 7, approval contingent on county building department, erosion sediment control, stormwater management, Virginia Department of Transportation, and health department approvals. With that, I'd like to turn it over to, I believe, Mr. Gunnar Beverly with Crown Hardwood to review the details of the application.
Chris covered just about the majority of everything that I would like to discuss. And before I take y'all's questions, 2 things I would like to add. As far as traffic, we don't have near as many trucks coming in and out as the sawmill. I mean, they deal with lumber and logs. We have, on a busy day, 10 trucks a day that will come in and out. And we actually have trucks that use that road now to come to Fairfield. And the only other thing, in regards to those boulders, there's already a silt fence there. So, I mean, the boulders are there to stop the logs, the silt fence, any gravel or bark or anything like that, it'll catch that. But we're also would put a dumpster in, like a long vertical dumpster, and then clean that up and dump it over in there. So there's not just bark and gravel laying all over the yard that if we do get water, just, 3 or 4 inches will carry that away, but we'll have that picked up and put that in there every evening. So that won't be an issue either. Be glad to answer any else questions.
At one point, we'd talked about having a berm towards the feeder creek.
Right.
Is any more consideration been given to that?
So that would be if it does become an issue and the berm is something we can install, and we actually talk to the neighbor. This corner here, shown on the map, there's 8 right there. They actually, the neighbor that owns that said they would sell us that little triangle piece of property on that side of the creek, where then we could put the berm there just to keep that water in that creek from coming down the property.
Is that not the Cars Creek, but the little feeder creek?
Right, correct.
On the west side of it.
Yes.
side, the west side of the property. Couple of questions. How much water is needed to float an average size log?
And the average size log that we have, I mean, I would say 6 to 8 inches of water to float it. And really, unless if that water is moving, it would do it. Now, if that water is just standing there, it's not going to do it. It would push it. As far as to pick a log up and carry it, I mean, I would say a foot of water in order to pick it up and carry it. But then again, if we have the logs and piles, the weight's going to be more. And as far as the height, I mean, our loaders won't stack them at so high, so it's not like we're going to have 40-foot high piles of logs. But the weight will be more at that point, so then it may take 2 foot of water to adjust that pile.
What is, I just don't know that. I mean, I can imagine what major storm.
Right.
I was gonna say, I mean, as far as silt fences, when the water comes, it's gonna take the silt fit, it's gonna take the boulder. I mean, I've seen a car floating down our creek at Whistle Creek, you know, I mean, water is pretty powerful. So, I mean, I'm not sure that a boulder, to me, I think have y'all talked about doing the Army Corps of Engineers thing or a PE or somebody to tell you? I mean, I assume you're not an expert in water drainage systems and that kind of thing, but
I'm
you
not,
know.
we haven't thought about it up to this moment. I mean, if that's something we need to do, but of course, if we're going to put a berm in, that's something we would need to do before we do that anyway.
Right.
I was gonna say, because listening to Mr. Goodbar when he was here last time, and knowing the lay of the land, it seemed like listening to him talk and just past history that it's truly not the Cars Creek that rises up in it. It's the water coming across the road in that subsidiary that feeds Cars Creek. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And so that's where I guess I was coming back to where Melissa's comment is if we got with someone and to say, is there, you know, I guess with your berm, you would have to get that approved by Army Corps. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I also have a question about, you know, we say in number 3, operation of the log yard will be from 5:30 to 10:30. But then the next one says log trucks can be unloaded and loaded 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. I mean, can we not get done, you know, and then you go on to say on Sunday, we need to be able to do property maintenance repairs, equipment repairs. You know, I can understand if it's an emergency and you need to do it on Sunday, but I don't know why we need to do property maintenance repair when you're open from 10:30, you know, it's 5:30 in the morning to 10:30 at night. Can you expand on that a little bit?
And that's something we can work around. Very rarely do we do anything on Sundays now. I mean, if we're really busy and there's something that has to get done, we may be out there on Sunday, but it's nothing extensive. We'd be out there for just a couple hours to complete something, but that's very rare, maybe 2 or 3 times a year.
And is the trucks coming and going 24 hours a day? Is that?
On average, the trucks come from, I would say, daylight to 4:30 in the evening.
So is there a reason that we need to put in there that they can go 7 days or 6 days a week, 24 hours a day?
Again, we just
You
base.
pulled that from the other.
I know,
Absolutely.
I'm asking
Okay.
him, that's why I'm asking him, in their operation, do they need 6 days a week, 24 hours a day?
I would like to have it to maybe like 6:30 to 2 p.m. on Saturdays. They could have,
Anything that's not 24 hours a day, 6 days a week, I'm
Right.
okay with, you know, I mean,
and, during Monday through Friday, 5:30 to 6:30
Mhm.
would be ideal for us. I mean, most time, unless we have a truck breakdown or something, then
Right.
they're in and out by then.
And that's gonna be a mishap if something breaks down and it's trying to get to you all and it get there after dark or after this
basically, we
hour.
can take that 24 hours
I
and
think you
just
can
put
take
in
that out
there.
because the 5:30 to 10:30 PM would take care of all of that. I think we could.
Mhm. And then the Sunday operations, I mean, does that need to be that broad, property maintenance and repairs? I mean, I could see if you had to work on a truck because it's got to go out the next morning or something.
Right. I mean, the main thing on Sundays, as long as the log grading's in there, if we come out there and do anything, then that makes no noise. That's
Log grading,
just
yeah.
people looking at the logs. And
Yeah, just really just taking out the equipment movement, you know, moving of the logs. That's going to quiet everything, you know, as far as grading grading the logs and working on trucks and things like that. The neighbors are not going to know you're there. So,
Right.
but now back up here to where it says operation of log yard 5:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. That includes all activities. Are we saying that's Monday through Friday? And then can we add the variance in there that he asked for Saturday, like from 6 to 2 on Saturday?
Right, and he really said 5:30 to 6:30 at night, I think, but we could, I mean, we've got 10:30 in there. I don't know that it needs to be.
Pretty late.
What would,
I mean, he said 6:30, so I was thinking 7,
What-
5:30
what
AM
is
to
workable
7
for
at
you
night.
all? I
Once it
mean,
gets dark anyway, we're not.
I was gonna say, exactly, there's no lights
Let's
out
do
there, so you're gonna
5:30
be in the
AM to
dark.
7 PM, and then you need Saturday from,
Well, see, I would make it 7 PM, so like I said, it's till dark. So in the summertime, it's gonna be 9, it doesn't get dark till 9. I mean, I'm picking it apart, of course, but I'm just, if they've got a truck coming in that they've loaded at 5 o'clock, they wanna roll in there about 8 o'clock, then you'd wanna be able to unload it.
so make it 9 PM.
I would say that's because if it's spring, summertime, they're gonna be dark by 9. If it's now, it's dark out there now at 7:30, so. And do we want that Saturday variance in there? As far as from like 6 to 2, is that workable for you all?
Like, what were you asking for now?
That's fine with us. 62.
I know most
I
people
was
want to
just
get it done
asking
early in the morning.
specific questions of him of what they needed to kind of tailor this more to what they need instead of having such a broad thing, so. You have any questions more for him, or do we need to open the public hearing?
Probably. If we have other questions, we'll ask.
All right, certainly.
Let's go ahead and see what the public has to say. All right, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anybody physically present that would like to speak? Okay, so now we can go back with our chat.
Yes, and Ms. Dunlap has her hand up, so I will ask her to unmute. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I just felt like I needed to speak up after seeing the sign along, 850 for several days that I should call this number with questions or concerns, I guess. So Chris Slayton helped me understand a lot this morning when I talked to him. And I have now, developed a lot of questions and concerns about this operation. The log trucks that are heavy as can be coming in and out of that location, they're not going to be pulling out fast onto 850. Are we going to have a traffic light there? To me, that's a concern. The weight of those trucks moving in and out of that location is a concern. The floodplain, of course, is a concern. My husband and I lived down 850 many years ago in the flood of 85. And we had just bought a tractor trailer load of logs to burn for our wood stove. And Cars Creek flooded. And our first thought was, oh my God, all of our logs are going to just float right down the creek. That is a big concern for me, thinking about a log yard full of logs and what damage that would do to everybody downstream. I have a video, and I posted it in chat. I don't know if you all can bring it up, but on May 5th of 2017, the gentleman who owned the property just east of this, the little Nan Lou and Bill Souter structure, flooded. And I took a video of that to show him because he was out of town. And the water was raging around that structure. And, it wasn't really deep, but you can see the speed and the strength of that water around that structure. So, and that was just 4 years ago. Cars Creek floods. Cars Creek floods. What else do I have? The Crown Hardwood Company mentioned that they were going to put big rocks around item number D, placing big rocks or boulders to guard against any possible flooding on the west side. But their illustration shows all the big rocks and boulders on the east side. to prevent the logs from washing away. So are you planning to divert water that's coming across 850 that actually floods that property? What are your plans for that? Dust control. I mean, I never even thought about dust control until I called the office today. You're going to water down all the dust. All that. Do you have chemicals on all these logs to preserve them? Are all of those chemicals going to leach into our water table and into the creek? Another concern. Hours of operation, y'all have addressed that. That's a 55-mile-per-hour road. That I think I've addressed the traffic concern with heavy trucks coming in and out. People, we just recently had a child die in that area.
Mr. Lamp, we have, our timer has come off.
I'm sorry.
We've heard a lot of what you said, and we will address that. Some of those questions I think have already been addressed, but there's some others we need to address, and thank you for your input.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the time. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, are there any other?
There's no one physically present to speak. Let me see if we have
Any comments or?
no open questions, and we do have some the links that is done by referenced.
Okay.
But other than that, we do not have any questions and answers or any other. Bear with me here.
So those links.
We do not have any other person to speak online.
Okay. And what are those? What are those?
I believe that's if you'd like me to open them, I certainly can try.
Karsh Creek is in the tree line.
Yeah, I can identify where this is on GIS. If need, it's going to take a little bit while. It's a 35 second.
No, is that, never mind.
This is downstream from them.
Yeah.
Right.
Had the water, had it start backing up Muddy Lane?
There we go.
Again, we got a feeling for how deep that is.
Well, you can see it on the fence there. It's
Yeah,
already-
you can see it actually receded. It appears to.
Where is
receded.
this at, Chris?
I can share this with you. So we got a pretty good feeling of that. With that being said, I'm going to shut this out.
She said that, Ms. Dunlap say what year that was.
That was 2017, 2018. Okay, so that picture is the structure you can see is identified as. Am I sharing my screen? Yes, is identified as 3441 West Midland Trail. The subject property we're talking about is 3505. As far as the question on Muddy Lane or not, it is approximately.
Not much further down the road.
No, Muddy Lane is here.
Right.
The bridge associated with Karsh Creek
Right.
is here, which is the bridge is approximately. My measuring tool there, Chris? I don't. Yeah, bottom middle. Bottom middle. Right there. For some reason I've lost my measuring tool. But if needed, I can find it. here, sorry. As far as where you see that structure away from the building, you're 650 feet away from that structure to the former BB Air structure. As far as Muddy Lane, the bridge associated with Muddy Lane away from the structure you saw in the video, it's about 1,000 feet away. As far as the center of the BB Air's property, you're talking at 1,700 feet.
Right.
That answer your question?
Did mine, yes, thank you.
All right.
I think you wanted to respond to some.
Do you want
Yeah,
to,
I'd like to hear some questions too.
But
for
and
Mr.
we do have
Beverly.
We-
2 submitted written comments. If you'd like to do those first. and
yeah,
then
let's do
let
those
us
as-
address-
and then we can close the public hearing and then, so yeah, let's go ahead and hear the written.
So this first one is from Ann Riffy Buckner and David Buckner at 5367 West Midland Trail, Lexington. It says, I submit the following comments to be included in the public record in advance of the planning commission meeting of 9/8/21. Water quality. The application mentions putting big rocks on the creek side of the property as flood control. Although the site may not have a history of flooding, we need to plan ahead for changing climate and the potential for more flooding. Do they apply chemicals to their lumber products? And when Cars Creek overflows its banks, what is going to be swept into the waterway? Do they propose to store petroleum or other chemical products on the site? Crown Hardwood would be well advised to plant native trees on the creek bank that do well in riparian buffers as part of a flood mitigation and water quality strategy. See references below. Crown Hardwood proposes to plant a screen of arborvitae along West Midland Trail to screen its wood yard. They are native trees, so that's fine. However, in the interest of biodiversity and habitat for local birds and other wildlife, they have an opportunity to plant a mix of native trees such as redbuds, native dogwoods, and other understory trees, along with the evergreen screening of arborvitae on WMT. Not to do so would be a missed opportunity to enhance the environment. How much truck traffic will they be putting on West Midland Trail? It is crucial that if they plant anything, they understand the importance of checking widely available, reputable sources and avoid planting anything that is an invasive plant. See reference below. Conclusion, I want to see them plant native plants in an effective way as outlined above on both the riparian buffer and lining their road frontage. Avoid planting invasives, avoid washing toxic chemicals or petroleum products into Cars Creek, and don't add too much traffic. Number of trucks to be determined. References of many that are available. These are a starting point, and there's links to these, but State Department of Conservation and Recreation, Virginia invasive plant species, native plants for conservation, restoration, and landscaping riparian buffer zones. Thank you for your consideration and for including these points in the upcoming hearing. And then the second one is from Jan Smith, 564 Big Hill Road, Lexington, Virginia. It says, in addition to the comments by Ann Riffy Buckner, I would like to add the following. Where in relation to the buildings and operations is the 50-year and 100-year FEMA flood boundary? Is this the first woodyard in an agricultural district in the county? How many woodyards are there in Rockbridge? Have there been any complaints brought against Crown Hardwood in its Fairfield location? When the application says no more than 8 vehicles per day, is that enforceable? Would it be possible to limit hours of operations? Questions related to spotted lanternfly. How far will trucks be traveling to Cars Creek from other counties out of state? How long would a wood carrier vehicle be parked on the property, if at all? Will Crown Hardwood ask their transporters to check their cargo and vehicles for spotted lanternflies and their egg masses? I'm sure Crown Hardwood would want to ensure a future supply of trees for their business and not bring these invasive species into our area of hardwoods and vineyards. Thank you for your help in submitting the above questions, concerns into the upcoming hearing. You're welcome. That's it.
Okay. If there are no other, nothing else coming up, anything come up on the,
Not that it looks like.
okay, all right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back. Several questions have been raised. Do you want to go ahead and address some of those initially, and then those that didn't get answered, we'll keep asking.
As far as the chemicals, the BBRs are actually, they already have an existing wash station there where the equipment is washed, and there's an oil separator under the ground there, and that's where we'll do all of our equipment maintenance on that. And as far as the amount of maintenance, they had 10 times the equipment we have. We have 2 wheel loaders, and that's it. So we won't be using that near as much as they will. As far as the truck traffic coming in and out, the road's pretty straight right there. It's not in a curve or anything like that. And the trucks won't be going any slower than what the truck trailers BBRs used to bring, come in and out of there using their equipment. And they won't be going any slower than the B&D trucking company that's run out of there a mile just east down the road. As far as the petroleum storage that was brought up, we will have off-road diesel on site, which will be in this concrete pad that is pre-existing there. The concrete's about 3 foot tall, and the tank sits inside of it. As far as the trees being planted, we chose them because they're the most concealing. As far as if people don't want to see the logs, I mean, dogwoods, I mean, they're going to lose their leaves in the wintertime, so we're going to be able to see right through them. That's why we chose them. And there's also, in regards to, there's a storage building there that's about 20 by 12. It's a little log cabin that's been there, and I asked Kevin Ayers how long it had been there. And he said for as long as he could remember. His dad put it there, and the water's never moved it anywhere, and that's all wood as well. So I just wanted to add that. My comments. As far as invasive species, spider lanternflies, but if we have a state inspector, since we export logs, and some of them go to other countries, we have to have them inspected for any bugs, pests, anything like that, because we're not allowed to send them elsewhere. So the state inspector comes out and inspects every load for that.
What was that about chemicals on logs?
Chemicals, so we don't have lumber, so we don't have dip tanks like sawmills, anything like that. The only thing we do the day before we export logs out, we put wax on them, but that's not something that sits on the logs on the yard. So say if it's going to get loaded tomorrow afternoon, that morning we'll put wax on it, and then it goes.
Now, are you gonna utilize the tanks that are here, or are you bringing new ones in?
Utilize the ones that's there.
Ones that are there.
Dust abatement if needed would just be water to sprinkle.
Right.
Would you consider having a little more diversity? There are other evergreens other than the arborvitae that actually more quicker growing. Remember what, Chris, do you remember, either Chris, remember what they were that when we
we had a lot of discussion on the Fairfield Solar
Right,
project with
right.
that, and I do
just-
not recall that
remember
was a mix of different species. But I
Holly.
do not recall. Okay,
Hollies,
American.
there were some hollies and some other good screens that are actually quicker growing, faster growing, and will maintain their shape.
Right. So we're not set on them. I mean, anything that will do justice and work good. We just don't want to have something that's going to go too big where we're out there, it's overhanging in the road, and we got to go out there and shut the road down and trim it down and everything like that. So as long as it will work and not get too big, then we're fine with that.
I have a question about the oil water separator you spoke of that's there. I'm assuming it's at the opposite end of the shop. Is that where it's actually? I was trying to figure that out earlier. Or is it on the back side of the shop?
So
Number
it's,
7. I think that's number 7 there, right to the left of number 8.
yes.
I'm looking at it. Okay.
So do you see the little structure that's got wash on it?
No. Yeah, that'd be great. I got too many papers
So
in front of me.
that's there.
Oh, okay. I don't have that same one. I had this one.
So it's that.
It's this one. Okay. All right. So now the oil water separator, is that, I mean, that you're going to utilize that BB and them already had there? And so are you going to, and it's in operational condition as it is? Okay.
What size boulders and how are they spaced?
So they'll be staggered. It'll be basically 2 rows of them. They'll be staggered because just in case they get through this one, then the second one will get them. We're thinking 5 foot apart, and they'll weigh 1,000 to 1,500 pounds.
Jeez.
I mean, about the size of a truck bed would be about 4 foot tall, anywhere from 4 foot to 6 foot would be the average dimensions.
The current plan calls for lots, they put it in the package. rocks will be about 4 to 6 feet tall, same measure staggered about 7 feet apart.
So who came up with that plan? I mean, is it somebody who deals with water management and how to deal with things in a floodplain?
That's just what we thought was best.
Right.
As far as keeping logs, I mean, and nobody wants to keep the logs on the yard more than we do. I mean, in Fairfield, we've had over $1 million worth of inventory out there. So the last thing we want is have $1
Or
million
to wash down the creek?
down the creek that we're gonna have to
Right.
eat or try to gather back up.
I don't-
So
I don't think I know my concern is not so much about you losing the logs. I know that is your concern, but I guess my concern is for your neighbors and that I've seen this area flood many times and you've seen the lady's house below there. Is there a way, Chris, that we could put in there that, in addition to the rock that we do ask that he follow up with maybe the Army Corps of Engineers to do a, proposed study to see, okay, yeah, we can do this, and it may be a simple fix or a berm or something. So, I mean, I want somebody that does this for a living and understands stormwater management. So, I don't. BB's been there for years and operated, good business things like that. I think they will too. I just want to make sure that the neighbors around them are happy with it also.
So that obviously y'all are required to act on it this evening.
Right.
With that being said, I think that's a discussion that we would have, that they would have with a professional engineer and
Then just
or
provide back to us or.
absolutely update the plan between now and next, if that's the will of the planning commission, that the flooding is the, have some direction of the components that we like. We've had some discussion on landscaping. The large majority of discussion is generated around the flooding issue. And so that would be, in my opinion, working with a professional engineer, and that professional engineer most likely would have the resources of Army Corps of Engineers, past experience of what mitigation you can do to control log yards.
It sounds like to me that Mr. Overley's done his research as far as like even talking to the other neighbor and the other neighbor saying, hey, if it becomes a problem, we could potentially sell you this piece of property to help out and stuff. So if we just get, somebody, knowledgeable in water diversion that would help for future, flooding, for him to keep his logs where he wants them and the neighbors to keep them out of their yards.
Well, and I
just to
think when
kinda
you're
work
talking
together.
about diversion, that means you're diverting it to somebody else's property.
No. I mean, because the Army Corps of Engineer will help you divert it back to
That's
the
what I mean.
creek.
I think
Because I
that's-
think
yeah.
what we're seeing now is the way it comes across the road from the interstate down across, from White Rock and then across 850 over into Parrish Creek. I just think you've seen that the banks have moved over the years. And if the Army Corps says, no, let's help divert the water back to where it was at one time, it'll be better for all parties. That's just my opinion.
You're thinking hard over there. What you got?
I mean, I'm not going to tell him no, but I think we need to look at, to help him help his neighbors just to make sure that everybody has the water where it needs to be. I mean, I think it's still going to flood, but maybe it's not going to flood as bad. So that's me, but.
It may be helpful for them to know what they could do as far as a berm, but like you
Right.
said, a berm's just all water's gonna go downstream eventually, and it's just a matter of if it takes some of your logs with it or not. I think your boulders are a good idea. I don't know what else you could do. I saw it was a photo that was sent of some like Jersey barriers. I don't know what that was intended for. Is another possible log catcher keeper?
Bees.
So that was an idea. We just thought the boulders were a more natural look that
Agreed.
they wouldn't be as appealing to the eye. But I mean, if that's something we feel is needed, then certainly that we'll be willing to do it.
I like the boulder idea better. I just want to make sure we have the density of the boulders is enough to allow the water to go through, but catch any of the logs. Your silt fence will catch in silt, and that's going to happen. Regardless.
I mean, once we're out there, and I mean, after the first rain where we get 2 inches, I mean, even if you just have half an inch of warm water going right down through a certain part of the yard, we'll see how the water flows. And then naturally, we're going to want to avoid putting our logs in that little stream of where it would.
Given enough advance notice of impending rain, would you consider getting your logs out of there
Now, if we thought that it was, we couldn't keep them on there, we certainly would. Now I'm thinking this upper portion of the yard, just by looking at the yard, is gonna be not where the water is going to be flowing at the heaviest rate down through the yard. So we would certainly move what we have up there. But I mean, if it's something, if we have enough plants to get everything out of there, we would do our best. Now, I don't know if I can't promise you we'll have the trucking power to do it. But whatever we think is most susceptible to floating down, because that means some of your woods are lighter than others. So poplars, we'd send them out first. Keep our oaks for last. Poplars and walnuts would go first, and so forth.
That would be part of a evacuation plan.
Right, correct.
All the questions I had. I guess the only other thing was about the lighting. There is lighting already on the building, but you wouldn't need lighting out in the yard.
Right, right.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with you addressed the neighbors' concerns. You know, flooding's going to happen. Not flood for a while, but it may flood next week too. So
Well, as I said, I'd like to see a plan from somebody that actually knows about stormwater management and how to deal with it and to come up with a better, I guess, not better, but maybe just consider what they're looking at and what else can we do to make the best plan. Because like he said, that's just what they thought would be a good idea, but this stormwater management person or a PE may have a really good plan that would protect the neighbors, which is my concern too.
We want to protect the neighbors.
So Chris, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I'd like to see that plan before I vote on anything or make a motion to vote on anything. What do we do?
You would just postpone, delay taking action on it, and then instruct the applicant to work with what I'm hearing is a professional engineer and or the Army Corps of Engineers to develop a flood mitigation plan unique to a wood yard.
Well, I mean, but can we not put it in here as like number 8 to say the same thing that you're saying here, approval contingent on the county building, approval contingent of, stormwater management plan as far as, viewed by a professional engineer? I mean, how does that work?
No idea
You
what
have
that
to
would
have some
entail.
objective
Yes,
result
that's-
for
yes.
staff to be able
To agree.
to determine whether or
Right.
not it satisfies you.
Yes.
Oh, gotcha.
The
I
other-
mean, I want to
the
see
others
that
are
plan.
regular.
I'd like to know what that plan looks like. I'd like to know what, because depending on what they do, if they are berm, what's it going to look like? What kind of plantings is it going to have? The riparian barrier, things like that, buffer.
So for full disclosure, they did have a berm idea at the original submittal, but then we inquired about the location. We staff inquired about the location of the berm, where the berm would be, how high it would be, and the response we got was we would wait and see what the water did, and then hire a professional to mitigate it. And I did not think that was an appropriate answer for us to have to then send to you to say
No.
exactly sort of what we're saying now is.
Right,
hey,
and I
we'll-
think
we'll wait and-
that's my point exactly, is
Duly
we need to be proactive, have that person in now, because they may say the berm is not appropriate for this location. We need to have somebody that's going to look at the location and give some good guidance, professional guidance, knowledgeable professional guidance about it. So I'm just one person, that's how I feel about it, but that's my proposal. I'd like to not act on this tonight until we see something from a professional engineer that has stormwater mitigation plan for this specific property.
Can you all do that?
We don't have to have another public hearing or any of that next time. It's
We have
basically
opened
just,
and closed the public hearing.
Yeah, I have closed the.
That's correct. So that is taken care of. I will say, historically speaking, we do allow public comments at the follow-up meeting, but it would not be excuse me, historically speaking, we always allow for public comments at the next meeting, but it would not be a bona fide public hearing, and it would not be advertised as such.
Right.
Yeah, I would feel better,
When is the next-
taking action once I see something.
So essentially what I think we'd like to see is professional stormwater management from a public engineer, Army Corps of Engineers to look at the site. I'd like to see some other species and looking at the riparian on the creek side, because that can mitigate a lot of the flow of water.
When is the next Board of Supervisors meeting?
27th of this month.
Is there a way that we could, I mean, knowing that we want this, can we put something in here to move it forward to the Board of Supervisors contingent upon them satisfying? I don't know if there's enough time.
That's what
Or-
Ms. Huffman, that was a similar question to Ms. Hines, and staff does not feel.
I'd like to get this project going, but I think there are some questions that need to be addressed.
So I don't think we can do it by conditions personally. I don't know what that condition would be.
And that'll also give them an opportunity to vote on the text amendment, approve that. Then we know, then we
Right.
don't have to have this
If they have-
contingent upon them approving the
Right, if
text
they want to
amendment
have,
changes.
it's possible that the Board of Supervisors would like more
Added to the
added
ordinance.
in the ordinance conditions. So, so I would,
Does that need to be in form of motion to postpone or just?
Well, you're gonna set this over.
Okay.
So
Make a motion
to
that we set
over to
this
your
over.
next planning commission meeting.
I make a motion that we set this over to the next planning commission meeting, at which time the applicant will bring us a plan from a professional engineer or other water mitigation professional.
you have a motion,
A second.
all in favor,
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you all for your patience as we work through this.
All right, our next agenda item is the notification of a variance request that is going to the Board of Zoning Appeals a week from today. That is, bear with me, this is agenda item number 11.
Ronald W. Snyder.
Yes, it's a Ronald Snyder 24. I have exactly a brief PowerPoint and I will make it brief. All right, Ronald W. Schneider has applied for a variance. And the variance is for, the property is located at 2540 South Lee Highway, Glasgow, Virginia. Property is located and surrounded by the A2 zoning district. The tax map number associated with the variance request is 87-5-1B. Includes, this particular property includes 0.64 acres and one single family dwelling on the property. Owned by Robert D. Snyder, Ronald W. Snyder, Mr. Snyder also owns the land directly across Route 11. Both tax parcels, two separate tax parcels equal a total of 1.39 acres per tax record. And so if you go on the GIS and you click in either one of these, they're linked together for tax purposes, but they are two separate parcels. But if you click on the GIS, it will indicate that the total parcel is 1.39. It's in fact two separate parcels. The one on the west side of the road consists of 0.46 acres per survey. Mr. Snyder has applied for a variance request to reduce the acreage of an existing non-conforming parcel. Again, tax map 87-5-1B owned by Ronald Snyder. The proposed boundary line adjustment is between 87-5-1B and tax map number 87-5-1C. 1C is owned by Lisa Maria Markham. Both lots are less than the required minimum lot size, 2 acres per county ordinance, and the adjustment would make tax map 1B more non-conforming, but make 1C less non-conforming. Due to the non-conforming lot sizes, a variance request is required in order to sign off on the boundary line adjustment. No action is needed from the planning commissions, but the planning commission may give recommendations to the Board of Zoning Appeals as it seems necessary. So just in a nutshell, very briefly, what has gone on, and it's our understanding that this was agreed upon many years ago, back in the 80s, and I believe it's a driveway encroachment that is on the Schneider property. And so Ms. Markham owns both tax parcels, this 0.37 acre and then the separate tax parcel of 0.07 acres. And so this is their existing property line. Their proposal is to add 0.06 acres from the Snyder property to the Markham property. So in reality, what that does is it makes one non-conforming more non-conforming, but at the same time, it makes the more non-conforming less non-conforming. It's fairly convoluted, but it will be on the Board of Zoning Appeals. It will be on the Board of Zoning Appeals agenda for next Wednesday per state law. I can't remember exactly what code section it is, but per state law, we are required to notify the Planning Commission of the variance request, and that is different than
15.2-20.
perfect. Thank you, ma'am. That is different than the appeals of zoning decision. So as far as the recommendation, as Ms. Hines indicated, per section 15.2.2310 of the Code of Virginia, the Planning Commission is required to be notified on the variance application. No action is required by the Planning Commission, but the Planning Commission may make a recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Historically, the Planning Commission has reviewed the variance application, but has not made recommendations. Obviously a bookkeeping item. Definitely welcome any recommendations or any comments the Planning Commission has, and I will certainly pass that along. But if the Planning Commission does not have any, we just have to acknowledge that.
So why are they doing this?
I was
If
gonna ask
they're both non-conforming.
I believe it's a
Because-
driveway
I
encroachment,
was gonna
so
say, that's what I
they're alleviating an existing encroachment issue, I believe.
Okay.
And again, I think
There's method in this madness.
Yeah, there is, yes, yes, and
People do not like having the easement of somebody's driveway over their property, so they're just moving it
and
over.
we've looked at different ideas, but this was what they felt was the best path forward.
The property owners did, both property.
Yes,
owners.
the both applicant, Mr. Schneider is actually the applicant because he's the one that is making a non-conforming parcel more non-conforming, but both of them signed the application. Mr. Schneider's property is making a non-conforming parcel more non-conforming. However, Mr. Schneider is the landowner, has signed the application, made the application, but Ms. Markham is the applicant, has signed the application
Right.
as the applicant.
Okay. Makes
Two
sense.
neighbors working together, basically.
I believe so, yes, as far as I understand it.
Okay. All right, I don't think there's anything else on the agenda tonight. So motion to adjourn,
Make a motion that we adjourn. Second.
motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all for your time and energy.
Mhm.